There we go. Try it now.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure that any of
All
that
right.
was.
So, Chair Polito, should we start at the top for this item? Given that it seems like nothing's been, there wasn't a number of people for the CIP or the agenda, but there are members of the public that I recognize would want to speak on this item. So I'm wondering if we should start from the top.
They have access to the staff report. So far, all we've done is cite the staff report.
Okay.
I think it would be any of the people online have specific questions about anything that we covered or up to this point, I'd entertain it, but let us know.
Okay. It might be that then we address that during public comment.
Okay. Go ahead, Lauren.
Okay, so to pick back up, so again, we're talking about the variance findings for the sports field netting specifically, to allow it to be built in the front setback and also to have a setback variance on the side setback adjacent to a residential parcel. So the second finding that would be required of granting a variance does not constitute a special privilege inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the vicinity and the land use zoning district within such a property or within which such a property is located. The proposed netting again is consistent consistent with existing netting along the service drive of Wonderlick Field or of Menlo School and Wonderlick Field, and otherwise complies with all public facilities and schools development standards. And again, it does not expand or intensify any existing uses on the field. Next slide, please. There we go. The third finding required, granting a variance will not adversely affect the interest of the public or the interest of residents and property owners in the vicinity of the premises on questions. Again, the proposed netting would reduce the likelihood of balls leaving the playing field and entering Alejandra Avenue, improving safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists on Alejandra Avenue. Furthermore, the installation of the netting would be conditioned upon the approval and continued maintenance of landscape screening along Alejandra Avenue. And it also would serve a further purpose of preventing spectators from gathering in what is currently the right of way, or in the right of way, excuse me, to watch athletic events taking place on the field. Next slide, please. And then the fourth finding, the granting of a variance is consistent with the objectives of the general plan of this title. In this case, it would be consistent with both land use goal number 3 to assure the development of private schools continues to reflect the town's character as a scenic and semi-rural, thickly wooded residential area. And goal community safety number 1, in that the town recognizes the potential danger to public safety that may result from natural or man-made causes and seeks to minimize such public risks. Next slide, please. To date, the planning department has received several public comments regarding the following concerns, namely traffic and parking impacts for the enrollment increase. At the school's current and proposed enrollment levels, traffic and parking are actually lower than what the approved thresholds were in the initial conditional use permit request. There's also concerns as to whether the enrollment request would effectively expand long-term enrollment capacity beyond what was previously approved. As mentioned, the enrollment will revert back to the 2023 levels, or excuse me, to the original 2023 approval of 835 students for the 2027-28 school year. the visibility of the proposed sports netting and from adjacent properties and on Alejandro Avenue was also brought up. So again, the netting improves public safety along Alejandro. But the town arborist has also worked both with the applicant and neighbors to develop a landscape screening plan for the netting. Excuse me. And yeah, and then also again another or the last I should say issue that was brought up was the use of the current use I should say of the public right of way by spectators in the field or viewing field activities. In which case the landscaping would serve a dual purpose of discouraging people from setting up in there or entering there to begin with. Next slide, please. So that said, town staff is recommending the following conditions of approval to the conditional use permit. The enrollment increase would be required to adhere to all the provisions of the approved traffic demand management plan. Vehicle trips would not be allowed to exceed 627 trips total during AM hours and 453 trips during the afternoon hours. The enrollment increase to 845 students is for the 2026-27 school year only, and the applicant agrees to reduce enrollment back to 835 students for the 2027-28 school year. The installation of the sports field netting would be contingent on the installation and ongoing maintenance of landscaping screening, which would include English laurel, little red oleander, Gulfstream, heavenly bamboo, Pacific mist manzanita, and all this would be to the satisfaction of the town arborist. Further conditions provided by the town arborist, any new plantings must be irrigated for the first 3 months from initial planting until established, and with additional supplemental water as needed. And the plants are to remain healthy, or the plants shall remain healthy, and landscape screening shall be sustained. Furthermore, any changes to the landscape screening or encroachment plan shall be reviewed by the town arborist. Next slide, please.
Town planner Brittany Bendix, I just want to clarify that the last two bullets are additional conditions that were not in the draft certificate and have to do with some of the public comment we received relative to the bay laurels and the specification of the species as well as irrigation planning.
And I just want to say that that should say for the first 3 years and not the first 3 months for the irrigation.
It should say first 3 years. That's a small typo, okay.
So next slide.
It's not public comment yet, but you can speak in a moment.
So the recommended motion to planning commission is to approve the campus master plan update, the conditional use permit and the variance to allow the increased enrollment from 825 students to 845 students during the 2026-27 school year, and to allow for the the installation of new sports field netting at Wonderlic Field. Next slide, please. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions as needed.
It did appear I misspoke and called it bay laurel when it's supposed to be English laurel.
No, we knew that.
Yeah. My stepdaughter is named after the bay laurel, so apologies.
A good report, Lauren. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll open up to the commission for questions and comments.
So these are two very different issues. Presumably, we can discuss them discreetly.
What do you want to start with? I mean,
Well, There's
Staff
there's
is
questions and then there's
intentionally-
discussion.
staff intentionally bundled them. I agree. There's different issues here. Why don't we tackle the netting first to see if, hear what the public has to say, but also hear what each of you feels about the netting. Personally, I'd say that school's plan and working with Sally, that they've made substantial progress to address the concerns that were voiced at our last meeting. One of the letters that we received talked about spacing. I don't even know where she got the spacing, because if it's in the fine print on a couple of these diagrams, I can't read that even with a magnifying glass. Is that an issue, Sally?
As proposed, the spacing is 6 feet apart, which I think is fine. I mean, we could require 5 feet, but the English roller can spread maybe to 10 feet. So
My experience is every time I plant something, I plant it too close to the thing next to it, and I end up having to tear it out. I just want to make sure that it was reasonable.
I think 5 to 6 feet is reasonable. I mean, but also we're not looking for gaps. So the whole point is it to be a full screen. So we
Except
could,
where the oak trees are.
which is because we're trying not to add irrigation around the oaks. And it's just a town policy and rule that you can't plant things close to oaks. So
Right, I understand.
Is this only question now, or can we make comments?
Both.
So there are a couple of different issues with regard to the sports fence. One is spectators trying to watch it, and I would suggest the possibility of putting a complete visual blocking screen on the existing fence that's there, which would totally preclude people from coming in between the bushes to still try to watch sporting events. So that would be a suggestion. The other would be, I would suggest that the English laurel that they plant be a minimum of 10 feet tall. So each 2 feet of growth is roughly a year's worth of growth.
People?
I think
Yeah, question for, I guess, Sally. And you talked about the oaks and the separation where the oaks are. So I'm still unclear on what the plan would be in those areas for the screening.
So something that came up this week when I met with Elizabeth, the resident that will speak later, is that she came up with the idea of adding some type of vine to that area. And Colony, the school's contractor, submitted some species for review. So one of their ideas is to weave in the vine on the fence, in the fence, so that it blocks any visual from the road, and it makes the fence a green screen, but a natural green screen. So that's
Any
one of the
actual
ideas.
Netting or
Yeah,
fencing?
the fence would be intertwined with the vine.
Right, so for that to happen, talking about an actual fence and not just netting, correct?
So the applicant will have to speak on exactly what it will be, because when I met with Elizabeth, it wasn't clear if it's going to be netting or if it's going to be fence panels. So
I think it's always been netting, hasn't it? Not quite,
Not
but
yet.
I just,
Sally, what's the height of the existing? I may be remembering this incorrectly, but I think there is an existing lower fence. So that's where I came up with the idea of putting complete screening at 5 feet and below to
to block
reduce the
part-
possibility
yeah.
of spectators.
That makes sense. I mean, the English laurel should be able to do that. So it can get up to 20 feet, I would say, but I mean, realistically, it would probably be around 10 to 12 feet. So it's not going to screen the 21 feet, but it's to visually appealing. I know the fence looks pretty industrial, so I mean, maybe they can get it to grow taller to screen it more, but
Um, So would you like some,
So what
an extra layer to block on the
maybe I
fence?
wasn't being clear. What I'm advocating, skip the
Right.
English laurels for a moment. The
yeah.
idea is to put solid screening on the existing 5-foot fence for the entirety of the fence, which will dissuade people from using that as a spectator area. So that's one idea, in addition to specifying that the English laurels be a minimum of 10 feet.
So like a green screening over the net, right? Up
Correct.
to about 6 feet or so.
To the height of the existing fence, which is evidently
Gotcha.
5 feet.
Then my other question for you, Sally, is it's not likely that any kind of climbing plant or ivy or whatever vine kind of a plant would not be able to do anything on something as flimsy as a netting, right? It would need to be something a little bit more substantial for it to be able to grow.
I would assume it would need to be on the fence. Yes. But if when I looked at the other fence that's already along the other side of the school, it's a fence and then it's netting. So again, I think it would be good to talk to the applicant to make sure exactly
Okay.
what's happening.
I just wanted to know, as far as anything growing, has to be something sturdy that it grows on.
It would be best if it was on something sturdy,
Okay.
yes.
I can't find where it is in this material because there's a lot of material, but there were 4 vines listed, and one of them I know for a fact would grow on that fence and completely close it down, and probably be preferable to solid green, the green netting that you see at construction sites and so
Although
on.
it would be 3 or 4 or 5 years before it would fully fill in.
Right?
I see here that there's English ivy that's mentioned. There's a creeping fig in one of the letters.
The fig is the one I'm thinking of because I have it on my property. It's pretty thick and pretty sturdy.
I think any of the ones they suggested, I wasn't exactly into creeping fig, but I would say that any of the ones they suggested would be fine. It would make a green screen.
And they also mentioned the mesh cloth that we're talking about too.
It would just need to be kept up, you know, because it is a living thing, so. And I can't really speak on adding like a green cloth or something. That's another aesthetic idea.
Yeah, I have a feeling
So-
it would be considered unaesthetic by neighbors. And just to be clear, there's only 2 or 3 adjacent property owners, homeowners, correct? To, adjacent to what we're talking about, the Wonderlick Field.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I agree the netting is less aesthetically pleasing than English ivy. On the other hand, you've got layers of plants in front of it. So presumably that's going to buffer a substantial percentage of the impact of the netting.
I guess at this point, don't have anything else. We'll hear from the applicant.
Public comment, yes.
Again, appreciative of the opportunity to work on this. We met with Sally almost right away after our last meeting, and I've also had some conversations with Ms. Kings, who's here. Just to clarify, so Ms. King suggested a few of those crawling vines to cover the net. But in talking to Simon, who's here with Colony Landscaping, the difficulty being that the net, because the material, it's not a hard material, would struggle to hold the weight of 20-foot vines, for example. So there are other options, like Menlo College, a little farther down, you see the slots. They have, you know, the slats on the fence. That's one potential option. It's not a natural option, but it would go up to that 5-foot mark because beyond that, the net couldn't hold the weight of the crawling vine. And again, the secondary planting is, to your point, meant to also deter folks from being in that area. And there will be some height to those plants as well. So I just wanted to provide that clarification. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to address them now.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Yep.
I'm Elizabeth King, 69 Alejandra Avenue,
So-
bordering on Wonderland
Miss,
Field.
Mrs.
Speak into the
King,
microphone, please. We can't
Sorry.
hear you, and the people
There we go.
online for sure
Okay,
can't.
I'm Elizabeth King. I live at 69 Alejandra Avenue, and I border Wonderlick Field. And I was the one who suggested the vines.
Okay.
Because I'm looking for, we have 3 oaks, and they have we have to avoid the roots. So Sally and I talked about it, and I think the only alternative would be to plant a vine to try to conceal, otherwise the fence will show. You'll have this industrial looking fence to look at. So the only alternative really is, unless you get a variance and go in the public right away and continue the English laurel hedge around, the only other alternative is to attach the vine to the fence. And I don't know if it's going to be structural, like some of your fences, the metal goes all the way up.
Go ahead and
Otherwise,
speak into the microphone.
the metal, and then the net is above
Mrs. King, can you please speak into the microphone?
Oh, I'm so
Otherwise, we can't record what your testimony is into the minutes.
Okay,
And so
I'm
it
not
gets-
sure if the fence is completely metal all the way up. Some of the fences are. Otherwise, it's partially fence and partially net. And Simon spoke to the fact that the weight of the vine would not hold the net. I have a couple responses to that. Some, like, for example, some of the vines will be lighter than others, particularly the one that, what's it called? The creeping fig. That is fairly light. I think that, and they're all fast growing. They all will cover. Some are better than others. And that's something we need to determine which one to use. But I do believe it's an alternative that would really help shield the fence from from a visual standpoint, from the neighborhood and the across the street and just the whole. I just want to beautify Alejandra, and I really want to fill in these big gaps around the 3 oaks. So this is my suggestion. And I'm hoping you'll accept it. Because otherwise I don't really know what else to do.
Thank you very much.
And you're happy with the English laurels?
Oh, yeah, I think we've all agreed that we need the English laurels because that's what we already have existing on the field. I have it, my neighbors have it, and it grows 20 to 30 feet easily. It could even get to 40 feet. And the vines too will take off and cover. So I just, the alternative would be if you don't have the netting, there is a possibility that you could use the cloth if you can attach it and then have it climb up the cloth. If you don't think the netting would hold it.
I don't think, I'd be surprised if you could grow the vines on the netting. You're only going to be able to grow the vines on the metal fencing.
Well, I'm hoping that either it's completely metal fencing or that we maybe use the cloth, which can be kind of attached to the netting, and drop it down and then have it grow up that way, or just use the cloth. There was something to screen out the
Right.
fence.
Thank you.
Chair Polito,
Uh,
did you, before Ms. King engaged in conversation with you folks, she was under 3 minutes. Did you want to announce that there is a 3-minute limit on comments?
Since you told me to, I will announce that. Try and keep your comments to 3 minutes, please. Next public comment?
Yeah, I'm Stuart Rosenberg at 1 Brittany Meadows. I'm directly across from the fence. I'm affected the most by the new fence, and I appreciate the efforts of the committee and the school to beautify and, make it a nice fence and protect us from all the balls that fly over our fence into our grandchildren's play structure and into our pool area. So I applaud that. Now, since you brought up the use of the field, can I comment on that?
Sure.
Because Mr. French says they're replacing the turf and they replaced it in 2004 and there's no change in use of the field. And that's just totally inaccurate. The field was restriped after the field was placed. So now there's a north-south, which I have no problem with, but there's a new east-west, which is right over by our fence. And now it is flag football from 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. till 7 at night with whistles, and they bring the stands over so they're directly facing the homes. And I've had Than over as my guest to, experience what that's like. And basically, there's no use, of our backyard during those flag football games or soccer matches because the whistles are by our fence. So there was a change of use. Now, I don't know, according to your city manager, we built next to a school and a school can do whatever they want. So I'm asking you, is there anything that the planning commission could do? Than was working on it, but apparently the college says that they can't, he was willing to move the field over from his standpoint so it's closer to the softball field. Then you could put the stands, facing south and it really wouldn't affect us. But I guess the college, the way their soccer goes, they can't really do that. So is there anything that, do we have any rights as neighbors? And is there anything that the planning commission can do to help us out? That's my question. Thank you.
That's a good question. Any other public comment?
We have one person online. David, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, am I there?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Thank you. I have a few things to say, but first so this doesn't get lost, the gentleman in the purple shirt, I can't see what your name is, sir. You said minimum 10 feet tall. I am in complete agreement with that. But the plan, and I'm happy to be corrected, has 8 to 10 foot plants, not 10 to 12 foot plants. I request that be specified as a change if you approve this plan. Now, I'm in some ways very heartened about this discussion in the last meeting, but frankly, as I step back, I'm incredibly disheartened. I appreciate your effort, the 5 commissioners there, but I feel like the planning department has let the citizens down. Let's go back to the original suggested approval to me, a variance is a huge, big deal, but it's just seems to be an expected okay if it's Menlo. They proposed a 20-foot fence, 20-foot poles, 4-inch black poles along a public way, 15 feet from my mother-in-law's house, who already spoke, Ms. King, saying, oh, well, it's just like the fence on the interior of the school. That is nothing comparable. A variance should be a big deal, no matter who's asking for it. And residents should be discussed with. Planning department should be discussing it with the residents instead of just coming to the planning commission and approving it. That's the only reason we're here talking about beautifying Alejandra is because my mother-in-law and my wife and I spoke to you and you saw the wisdom of what we were saying. That shouldn't be our job. That's the planning department's job, especially when they're saying a 50-foot variance on the side is okay to put a 20-foot pole 15 feet from a residence. So I appreciate your efforts to do the right thing. Stuart did raise an excellent
30
point,
seconds.
which was the restriping of the sports field. I don't understand how the packet says there's been no change. Last thing is, and somebody mentioned it before, the bundling of the two requests seems to me to be completely improper. This is one agenda item. I think there are two applications. They should be considered completely separate. I appreciate your time and your consideration of our comments and Ms. King's comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more participants online that wish to make a comment?
If I can ask a question, Brittany, the original approval of the field was in 2004,
Correct.
and then it was striped differently.
It was, the striping was approved in 2004 and then
They
completed in
returfed it.
2005.
They put on new turf, and when they did that, they put in stripes, correct?
Correct.
So should that have been subject to approval to restripe it? Because it's obviously changed the whole character of the use of the field.
So when the restriping was proposed and reviewed by the building department, the school and the college were still negotiating the terms of their separation. And at that time, the field was under the stewardship of the college. In the 2005 annual report, the school then announced that, hey, we have acquired stewardship of Wonderlic Field and have made some improvements. Have made some improvements over the course of 2004 when that transition happened. So it came before the planning
Can I ask the
commission.
question a different way?
Sure.
Were the terms of the agreement between the city, the school, such that changing the use of the field required city approval?
It received city approval through the permit issued by the building department.
So the city approved the change in the use of the field and the restriping.
Yes. And then that was then vested through the aerial photograph in 2005 and confirmed in the annual report provided to the planning commission in 2005 as well. And there's no indication that any concern was raised, and that was a publicly noticed hearing.
I haven't closed public comment yet, and I see a hand raised.
Stephanie Disher.
Hi, I don't want to start my 3 minutes yet, but what does the building department, what do they review for? Does a building permit review for like drainage and construction requirements? Or do they actually take in input from other people and create like a whole planning overview?
The building department is generally looking at safety and construction requirements.
Okay, so does this building permit have any discussion about neighborhood input?
That building permit was not publicly noticed. That's not normal for a building permit, but the topic did come up at a publicly noticed hearing raised by Menlo School in 2005. And there's no indication that there was any commentary relative to the land use at that time.
Okay, so at that time, were the team benches up against the residential fence?
I don't know.
Were the sheds against the residential fence?
Do you want me to continue to engage in a question and answer?
Well, yeah, because I want to know. I want to know.
Being the chair of the planning commission.
I think I personally don't have any doubt that some changes were made that were inappropriately not properly reviewed and approved, use of that field.
Well, I strongly feel because I made a public records request to the town and I have a copy of it. And Lisa Costa Sanders, who was the planning director a few years ago, she said she only referenced this building permit and there was no planning, there are no records of planning review, planning permits, nothing. So I really don't think the design of the field was noticed until it was permanently painted on the turf and great big nets started getting all moved around. And when it got turf, that's when Menlo College started using the field in their as their Division II soccer home field, and the softball team started using it as their collegiate Division II home softball field. So there was an amazingly increased usage, both in noise, intensity, competition, physicality, everything. So maybe in 2005, people didn't see that coming and didn't have comment, but there have been lots of comments since then, and nothing has changed.
I think this is a little bit of a case that the horse got out of the barn, certainly before our time.
Oh, it is certainly before your time. But what I really appreciate about this commission is that now you're looking at the big picture. You're looking at this request for a variance, and you're at the same time you're looking at this population increase and variances, and variances shouldn't be granted when alternatives exist, and there are plenty of alternatives that are not happening. They're not being taken advantage of. So I'm sorry.
The specific, if I could interrupt, the specifics of the variance has to do just with the netting. There's a safety component to that. And so I'd be hard pressed to throw out that request for a variance without due consideration because of that safety element.
Well, there is a safety element. The safety element exists because of the increased, in fact, the extreme overuse of the field. And what's really important here is that Menlo shares Carton Field, which borders El Camino with extremely healthy residential borders on one part, rather than zero residential buffer for Wunderlich. And that's where the intense usage should be happening. And there wouldn't even be a need for a sports netting because the ball would never get outside of Carton Field.
I understand, but we've got a situation here where the use of this field was approved, and granted, I think some errors were made along the way, but changing in fact, right now, there's probably $30,000 or $40,000 worth of new turf going down.
And that makes it the perfect time to make changes on Carton that address the changes that are illegal to begin with, and to change the uses between fields to use Wunderlich Field in the way that it should be used, and to use Carton Field the way that it should be used.
The perfect time was before the turf was ordered. So I don't think we're not going to stop that at this juncture.
But the manner of play and the intensity of use is far too great. And when you just allow more and more students to use the field, Menlo is already bursting at the seams. We all want Menlo to do well, but they don't have any room. Look at Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart was an all-girls high school, and they developed into...
30 seconds.
Wait, I said this doesn't count as my 3 minutes. I'm just responding.
It does count. You got 30
Well,
seconds.
okay. Well, it shouldn't, because this is really important. Sacred Heart planned their campus. They went from an all-girls high school and they looked at where they needed their athletic fields. There is no field that isn't buffered by the street. There is no field that has a residential neighbor where the school has not given up their own physical space to provide a greater buffer. Nothing
That's the 3 minutes.
Nothing shares a boundary. Wait a minute. You need to look at this. This is really important because right now, and we have been bringing this to the town's attention over and over again, there are sheds on Wonderlick Field. Those sheds are smashed against the 69 Alejandra Avenue residential fence. Inside those sheds, you will find PA system, you'll find the amplifiers, you will find equipment, everything. You will find team benches just a couple feet from the fence. That is where the coaches stand and shout directions during both practices and games. When the PA system is used, and it's not supposed to be used, it's set up right against the residential fence. All the activity is centered at the residential fence. Menlo recites that they plan their activities
gonna
and
have to-
noise away because it is required by.
I'm going to have to mute you in a minute.
I did.
Oh. So, the totality of schools, these issues, of which the use of this field is a sore topic with some of the neighbors. Cars and parking is a sore topic with some of the neighbors. And I think some of their concerns are legitimate. I'm not exactly certain what those residents asked to a solution other than working with the school, who makes reasonable efforts to cooperate for sure. It's particularly disconcerting to me that we went from one north-south field with quite a bit of space around it to multiple directions of field use. That shouldn't have happened, quite frankly. And I don't think we can undo it just because we think it was wrong at this point in time, but there should be it should never happen again. More importantly, there probably should be a path for some remediation. I don't know what that is.
Well, we can ensure that the schools adhere to the noise requirements and the hours of operations that are set by the CUPs that have happened in the past. Until they come forward and request future modifications, which we do anticipate, for example, on Carton Field, but not necessarily Wonderlick Field. We don't have that option to go back and reconstruct the CUP that governs their operations. So, and especially with the approval having occurred on a building permit and then being raised at a planning commission hearing that was publicly noticed and instigated willingly by the school. There seems to be no reaction by the planning commission at that time that they had to go back and do a retroactive CUP or any code enforcement related issues on that matter. That report was just accepted without any further discussion. So yes, that was how the planning commission 20 some odd years ago reviewed matters. Things are different. For example, up until a year or two ago, planning department review wasn't even required on grading and drainage permits as a matter of fact process, because of a project where an individual put in a sports court on their single family home property, and it became an issue where I had to bring it as a variance while they were basically finishing construction on everything else. that's when we inserted ourselves into the process. So things have changed, but there really isn't much that I can do about altering what the past approval and commission actions were.
So outside of this meeting, and not to be addressed tonight, but are you able in your capacity to give any professional opinion or advice to the residents if they're looking for a way to start things to be changed?
Sure. So, I mean, I've met with Ms. Disher about 6 months ago and indicated to be more aware and involved in these processes, and she can elevate it to the planning commission. That's one of the reasons we're even talking about it. And to, identify some of the mediations that might come up when Carton Field, for example, could be moving forward for alterations, and to work on the relationship with Menlo School. I've also had a number of conversations with Menlo School, encouraging them to do as much outreach as possible and to really work on those relationships, because it is not uncommon in the planning world for there to be friction between a school and their most immediate neighbors. And it's really beneficial for people to try and find some alignment where they can. Outside of that, we have a code enforcement division now. It's just generally relatively new in the last few years. And so there is somebody to call and work with in terms of enforcement and research on what the actual hours of operation and limitation of the fields could be. So that's an avenue that they can take as well.
It would seem to me that because Wonderlick is being returfed right now too, correct? And I don't know anything about the process, but it would seem to me that it would be a good time for the school and the neighbors to get together to work on the addressables, not on the CUP or the conditional use permit or anything like that, but some of the items on the field that have been brought up here tonight, like the sheds and some of the things that are obviously movable. They've had to move them for the returfing. It would seem that maybe there can be some negotiation between the neighbors and the school as to where to put those when they put them back after the turf is laid and marked and all that. They got to put them back somewhere. And it would seem to be a good opportunity to say, okay, we can put them over here now and kind of start from scratch.
So in theory, playing off that point, in theory, if we were to approve, in theory, we could approve and make it contingent upon all those sheds being moved to a different location away from residences. Could we not?
Well, nothing should be in the setback that wasn't previously approved.
Right, the
That's not
sheds,
my- hold it,
the
hold it.
sheds are,
That's not my question.
Sure.
My question is, if we were to approve the landscaping plan and the netting, could that be contingent upon the moving the sheds so that they are not adjacent to residential property?
I'm not sure if that is enforceable because I don't know the prior conditional use approvals thoroughly enough to know if they say anything about that. And if the school were to walk away from the netting proposal, that might not be beneficial. You could certainly put it in there. I just don't know if it's.
I'm not
yeah.
advocating for it. I'm just asking the question. I mean, clearly it's a pain point for some residents and I think we ought to hear that.
accessory structures should have to comply with our setback requirements.
Right. So there really shouldn't be anything in
Do we
there
know that they
anyway. And
don't?
that's to my point of enforcing on it.
If, just enlighten me. So if you put up a shed or sheds, how far should they be from the property line to be compliant?
I believe it's 10 feet. Lauren, do you know offhand it might be different for this specific zoning district?
I believe for PFS it's actually 50 feet because it requires it to be treated as a building.
Right.
Okay. Hence the variance request for the screening. So it's actually even more restrictive.
It would seem
So
that, go ahead.
I've never seen the sheds. So based on what has been described, it sounds like the sheds are in a non-compliant place right now.
Right. So if that's the case, we could go out there as code enforcement and
And
create
require
an
them to be
issue.
moved.
Yes.
Without trying to
Thank you.
legislate
No,
too
I'm
much.
not, yeah, I'm just,
Yeah.
But
I'm
also-
asking questions to be educated,
Sure.
not putting forth a point of view.
But it also seems, without trying to over legislate, that it could come down to just being neighbors and figuring something out together.
Right.
When you replace these movable objects, whatever they may be, or however many there may be, to a different spot once that new turf is laid, and just kind of see if there's some happy medium, some common ground that can work out at least one of these issues.
Right. Like there's a difference between equipment that is fixed, like a fixed shed,
Right.
and something that is just rolled out periodically and comes and goes during practice. Right. So there's some nuances there that really could be resolved through a complaint.
And so presumably if a resident who objects to the location of the sheds should be filing a complaint.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's how we basically operate in this town.
Right. Work on complaints. Getting back to the fence.
I'm closing public comments so we can figure out what we're going to do here. Go ahead.
Okay, so Sally, again, back to kind of the landscaping issue. And the oaks, got to avoid the water, all that. But at the same time, we still have those gaps, right? And if you put some vines in there or something, there's still the question of water. So would anything, and I'm just kind of trying to think outside the box here as we work through this. Is there anything, you go to events and you see like fake ivy screening, and I've seen it on fences as well, to be more decorative than just green construction screening. Something that would look like ivy that would hopefully be durable because it's artificial. Can you put panels of that up that are 6 foot tall where those gaps are, or even all along it, just to prevent spectators? It looks like ivy, it doesn't need water, and would anything like that be possible?
I mean, this isn't really my field
Okay.
because that's a
Because it's not growing, it's
plastic
not living.
material. It's not
but-
living, but
but-
I don't see why that would be an issue if the school and the residents thought it was aesthetically appealing.
I just think it would save
I
the
mean,
oaks, right?
some of the screening will cover it. So, I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
The ivy and the creeping fig, they don't need any water,
Seems like would.
very little.
it's a matter of what aesthetically they want to fill in the gap. Yeah. So
One question is that fence, not the netting, the fence, is it metal, the whole chain link, the whole way?
It's 5 feet chain link. Yeah.
So we could easily grow ivy on that fence.
Yes.
Okay, I think we should include that as the requirement.
you could include that, and then I don't know, possibly you could say, well, if the live vines don't work, then an alternative,
They'll work.
screening.
Planting English
I
ivy is
think we have
incredibly
bigger-
durable. If you plant
I
English
want
ivy
them
up
to
there.
plant English ivy. That's not an option.
You can decide which one.
Yes.
Because of the oak trees,
I
right?
don't think you need to be, I think we can just say the condition is to fill in the gap with a type of vine approved by the town arborist.
I think we should plant a vine along the full length of the metal fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Bob, you're right on.
All
Along
right.
with the English
So-
laurels.
But you do a vine along that fence and then you'd also put in the English laurels.
All the other stuff
Yeah,
goes
all the
up
other
because
stuff
it
too.
serves a different purpose.
It's
But
just, yeah.
So, done discussing that before we move on to the other, the extra 10 students.
So the speaker who dialed in, David, so my name is Steve Seabolt. David, you caught the same thing I did. So I specifically said 10 feet while the document said 8 to 10 feet. It was not a mistake. I did it on purpose because I figured it gave us 2 more years of growth and screening.
Okay.
Maybe ask it, can I come up?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. And Simon's here because obviously this is not my area of expertise, but the distributor that Colony uses, which is actually the same distributor that Elizabeth King, her landscape architect, uses as well, says he's able to get, it would be in October, would be the taller, but that would be 8 to 10 based on what Simon's saying. So he hasn't, that distributor, which is well used, has not been able to guarantee a plant that is 10 foot and above. And that is a species that's the ball and burlap. So they share both of these, Colony and I can't remember the name. Studio Green both use this distributor out of the Pacific Northwest. And so he said in October he could get the ball and burlap, but it would be in an 8 to 10. So
it's a supply issue.
Sorry.
this is not my area of expertise. So
It kind of is mine.
yeah.
There are boxed, as opposed to ball and burlap, there are boxed 10-foot English laurel trees that are available.
Okay. So
they're not ball and burlap because ball and burlap is a cheaper solution. It's going to be more expensive, but you get bigger trees.
okay. Well, good. We'll look into it more. Part of the reason we looked at this distributor and the ball and the burlap was based on some of the feedback that we got from the neighbor about the preference for that based on how well it's grown in that area previously. But then we'll talk to Colony.
If you go for a box tree, you're going to get a bigger tree.
Okay.
The sooner those trees get grown, the less noise there's going to be for the neighbors that we're dealing with here. Anything else on I think we kind of got a direction on that.
Okay.
The extra 10 students, as I understand it, these are little kids, not people going to add to our parking issues, et cetera. So, and because you're going to go back to the 835 students next year, I don't see a problem with 10 little extra kids on campus.
These are,
You guys think?
they're 6th graders.
That's
right?
what we've been told.
Yeah. No,
My question on that was the term enrollment yield rate. I just wanted a definition for enrollment yield rate. I didn't understand that term. So.
Dan?
At some point, I
Yeah.
think we should let the
Thank you.
professionals come and present.
Hi, Commissioners. I'm Than Healy. I'm the head of the school at Menlo. Been there 13 years. I'm also an Atherton resident. I know some of you, but not all of you. The yield refers to the delta between the number of students that we accept and the number of students who accept our acceptance, if that makes sense. So the yield is the number of students who say yes to us after we say yes to them.
Gotcha. So you say yes to a certain number and you expect a certain number to accept that. And that's gone up. So then why is this just a 1-year bump? Why would you think that would not continue next year to have a higher enrollment yield rate?
I think we have to estimate, we have to guess for a higher yield. We have to anticipate a higher yield. And if we under yield, then we go to our wait list earlier, and it's about enrollment management for us. So we look at 1, 3, and 5-year averages on what our yield looks like. And as you may have seen in our letter, those yield averages ranged between 69% and 73% acceptance of our offers. This year, 83% of the students accepted. We weren't anticipating that. And that's what gave us the additional students in the 6th grade. It's not good for us. It's not actually, it's not a desired outcome for the educational program. It's too many kids in one class. We're going to have to overstaff in order to make that work. It's all kinds of headaches, but so we'll have to adjust for that in the future.
Thank you.
On the 10 students?
Well, the only comments I had on that are I'm not necessarily in favor of it just because of the agreement with the conditional use permit earlier. And I just think those are the numbers, and have to kind of go with it. I understand the impact of having a higher enrollment yield rate, but I think it's their responsibility to try to make it work and fit within the parameters of what was set up in 2024. And you look at that whole area and how impacted it is with students, not just from Menlo, but of course Sacred Heart right next door, and combined, looking at 1,500 students or so, or 600 students. So I know it's a small increase. I just don't like opening that door and setting a precedent.
I agree
I
with what
agree.
you're saying. I mean, I do. And I think it's not the first time that this has happened. And I understand that admissions is difficult to pinpoint. Nevertheless, you know, I'd rather see a little under enrollment than over enrollment because you do have neighbor issues. And I think that probably includes Menlo Park as well. I know that they have Menlo cars parked in front of their houses. So it's not just Atherton. I mean, I would hope that this doesn't happen again. We would definitely not want to have to go back to sixth grader and say, I'm sorry, but we're rescinding your offer. But this is an uncomfortable position to put the planning commission in, I think. And it's not a position we like being in. You know, we certainly don't want to, we don't want to have to decline something like this. Nevertheless, we need to be responsible to our neighbors, your immediate ones and surrounding as well. So it's just, it's difficult. If in fact, and you probably will have some adjustments over the summertime, I assume that you wouldn't replace those students with anybody else, that you would.
Commissioner Levison, to that point, would you want to make that part of the condition? Because I don't believe that's there.
We go that direction, yes, I think that we should say, you know, I've worked in schools before, I know that change happens over.
Chair, we have someone online who sort of separated them out as two separate issues and is asking if he can make a comment.
Bear with me.
David, I'm going to unmute you.
So what is David's address? I'm.
Oh, 69 Alejandra. So I was a little confused that because it was the two conditional use permits or variances appeared on the agenda together. You know, in the last meeting we talked about the netting as its own variance. Now they've been combined, which frankly is incredibly unusual. I'm hoping they will get separately voted upon. I'm hoping that any conditions will be separately voted upon. They shouldn't be one grant. And I'm partly because it seems like there frankly are some conditions that the Planning Commission is considering for the netting, almost actually requiring more work about like the 10 to 12 foot English laurels, the vines, etc. So I'm just confused about how the vote will be taken. Are they separate items or are they not? They seem to be two separate applications.
Chair,
So I would assume two separate votes.
Go ahead.
So can I, procedurally, is
So-
is it possible for the school to come back to us with two separate requests? Because I'm assuming at this point, we cannot divide the two items and vote on them separately,
Sure we could.
procedurally.
Absolutely, you
Yeah,
can.
we could.
They
We
are,
can't vote
they're
on them
not two
separately.
separate items. It is all one CU application. And the variance is kind of an adjunct onto that relative to what happens with the fencing. The annual master plan has to cover everything that's coming before in an anticipated year. So when we sat down with the school to talk about, the landscaping issues, that's when they raised that, hey, we have an enrollment problem. And it was at my direction to do everything at once because there are issues that bleed into each other. The parking, the trip concerns, and it's important to be as transparent as possible with the public at the full scope, especially with bringing the annual plan update of everything that the plan has, or the school has planned for that year. That is the intent of the annual master plan report. Anything then noted in that then has to be approved through various actions. So the way that you would distinguish one from another is you would approve the CUP or recommend approval of the CUP without the added enrollment increase and approve it for the
So we can vote
variance,
on them
right?
separately.
So,
Not exactly, but
you
you
would
can leave things out.
vote
or-
on the collective project, which is also important to identify for CEQA purposes, but you would modify what it is that you're doing in that action to align with whatever your intent is.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I appreciate how difficult it must be to do field management at a school. Stanford has to do it. Every other educational institution has to do it. I appreciate airlines have to do it. I appreciate that you can get it wrong or it can end up being wrong unintentionally. But this town is so crowded. And no, they're not going to be driving cars because they're sixth graders, but it's going to be 10 more moms or dads driving those kids to schools. And we have a substantial number of complaints about traffic in and around that school area. And on one hand, you can say, well, what's 10 more? But it's 10 more and 10 more and 10 more and 10 more. And I think we have a responsibility at some point to accept the fact that we have limitations.
That's the commissioner's will. We can deny the increase in enrollment.
So should we take a vote on the enrollment issue first? And go back to the
Either that or
fence?
make it,
We've got to approve the master plan, and we've just got to craft the approval. The commissioner's judgment. What we should and shouldn't approve. Sounds to me like several of you have severe heartburn with seeing temporary increase of 10 students.
so it'd just be a matter of rewording the motion.
I think we need,
The applicant be heard from before you move to vote? I mean, I answered Commissioner Tonelli's
Certainly.
question, but I haven't had a chance to be heard
we
on this matter.
we want to get every reasonable bit of information we can.
So it sounds like you're going to combine the master plan update with the enrollment question. So let me just speak to the lesser of those two, the less controversial of those two, which is the master plan update. This is an update that we've submitted every year, at least since I've been here. Not a lot in there other than to identify that we've maintained our enrollment for this year at 815. We've underhit on our traffic counts. We're tracking a projected number at the end of the school year of 575 morning trips against a target of 627 and 406 afternoon trips against a target of 453. So well under where our traffic numbers are required. We're proud of that. The only other update that I would give you on the master plan that was referenced by Ms. Bendix is we do intend to come in front of you with a carton plan. We're working right now with the college, and we'll be meeting in 2 weeks with our neighbors to talk about a plan that we put together in response to the concerns and the opportunities that we see jointly. So you can anticipate that, and I think that'll be an opportunity to address some of the concerns about impact on Wonderlic Field. We won't be moving everything off of Wonderlic Field, as some of our neighbors hope we will. But we've got 6 programs: boys and girls football, boys and girls lacrosse, and boys and girls soccer. And that's just on the school side. we think with a turfed field at Carton, we'll be able to, that we could use year round, we'll be able to offload some of the weight of Wonderlic right now, which is the only turf field that we have. So you can anticipate that. So on the master plan, those are the two things that I would highlight for you. As to the enrollment increase, I'm embarrassed to be in front of you talking about this. I'm somebody who believes that their word should count. And when we came in front of you and you granted what you granted a couple of years ago, we took that seriously. Our new admissions director next year, their first job will be getting back to 835 to our commitment, and there isn't an option not to do that. Telling 10 students, 10 sixth graders that they who've been accepted and are excited to come, that they can no longer come is something that we will be challenging for us to stomach, and we hope that you will consider that exceedingly seriously. We know that this is a serious matter. I don't revel in the idea of being in front of you today, spending your time and my time talking about how we didn't hold to our word here. And I get that sometimes you need to set a boundary, but these are kids that we're talking about, and I hope that you'll consider that when you think about the enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Close public comment for the 10th time.
Because they turned down.
I think we need a straw vote on this,
Right.
on the students. Then we can the rest of the motion fall out.
That's just
I can make one comment.
Sure.
That these students have turned down other schools. I would say my inclination, now the 800. It would, obviously it was a mistake, but it's going to create so much friction and so much heartburn among a lot of people that I think should approve.
It affects a lot of people other than two people sitting there from Menlo School that we're talking to.
right. Well, and then in regards to the numbers, first of all, the TDM is always impressive, and the work you guys do to try to cut down on the number of trips and things like that, it doesn't go unnoticed, and appreciate the effort that Menlo has continually done working with the neighbors, and hopefully will continue to do so. But in one of the letters, it mentioned the original CUP at 750 and then 790, and I was on the planning commission 20 years ago, and those were the numbers we used to deal with on an annual basis. So it's really, for me, and I understand kids and things like that, but it's just really hard for me to see that enrollment go over even 800, considering the area and the two schools so close together. So, and like I said, the original CUP was for 750. And I understand this is a one-year deal, but I have a tough time setting that precedent and increasing. So that's kind of where I stand. I don't know if anybody else has any additional comments on that.
I agree with you, Paul. I see what you're saying. It's very difficult for me to have the kid bear the brunt of this. I mean, we're the adults in the room. We shouldn't be in this position. We are. And I'm a little caught up in the kids that are going to be suffering for this.
I'm sympathetic to the kids. What I worry about is there is a history, whether it's sports field or whether it's enrollment, of constant creep. And we've got letters and emails and comments from citizens looking at us and saying, when is this going to end? And when is it going to stop? And while I'm sympathetic to the school's problem, I'm not sure the school's problem should become our problem.
Well, I'll make a motion on the master plan update with an exception to the increase, and see what we got on that motion. Is that so? I'll move that the planning commission approve the proposed campus master plan update, MPL 26-001, conditional use permit, CUP 26-001, and variance, BAR 26-003, to allow the installation of a new sports field netting at Wonderlick Field located at 65 Alejandra Avenue, with the proposed landscape screening, and not to allow a temporary increase in student enrollment from 825 to 845 students during the 2026-27 school year at Menlo School, located at 50 Valparaiso Avenue. I hope that covered it as a motion.
Here, second. Second. Seconded. Comment. All in favor of the motion as made?
I'm sorry, can you do a roll call vote, please?
We can, I love roll call.
So do I. Commissioner Levinson,
So no, if I want to allow the kids, then I'm,
No, I said that we would approve the master plan and the fence and not allow the increase.
So a no would be.
Right, she wants the kids in.
You want the kids in? Okay, then no is the correct.
Commissioner Lukers,
No.
Chair Polito,
No.
Commissioner Siebolt,
Yes.
and Commissioner Vice Chair Tonelli.
Yes.
So I have 2 yeses and 3 nos.
So now we need to
So-
make another motion.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion. I move the planning commission approve the proposed campus master plan update, their conditional use permit, and a variance to allow a 1-year increase in student enrollment from 825 to 845 students to be returning to the proper level next school year. And the installation of new sports field netting at Wonderlick Field, including all the landscaping that Sally has worked with them, and including ivy of some sort, some on the metal fencing underneath. That's my motion. I need a second.
Second.
Last chance for comment.
And I ask that we specify the 10-foot trees instead of 8. They're available.
It's not a big deal. I can live with 10 feet. I made the motion, I guess.
Okay.
Second.
All right, vote.
Okay, Commissioner Levinson, Commissioner Siebolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonelli,
No.
Commissioner Lugers,
Yes.
and Chair Polito.
Yes.
So that is 3 to 2. Yes, 3 yes. 2 no.
Four yeses.
Or one.
4 yeses
Oh,
and
sorry.
1 no. And before we move on to the next item, for the person, the issue that was raised by one of the residents about structures against their back fence or whatever the intrusion into their property line was. I think this fence is going to solve a lot of the problems for the people across the street from the field. It won't solve the noise and overuse issues, which it sounds like you've got some thoughts using Cartran and the rest to help with that, which I think would be widely applauded by the neighbors. But if there are structures that affect a residential property, then you need to file a complaint, and we have code enforcement people that will deal with that in the proper manner. There's multiple issues because for all I know, there could have been a conditional use permit or a variance issued 20 years ago that affects the shed that has the PR system in it. I don't know, but that's the approach you need to take. Let's move on to the next item. Tom, I think that's you. We've got to amend the general plan, and it's our job to make a referral to the city council on that.
Thank you, Chair Polito. Tom Ford, Senior Planner. So the next item I have for you is a consideration of a resolution recommending amendments to the Atherton General Plan to implement updates to the community safety element, the open space and conservation element, and the circulation element. With me tonight is our consultant who worked on this, and he's going to give the bulk of the presentation. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council adoption of a resolution to amend the general plan to implement the updates that we're about to hear about to the community safety element and further updates that were made to the open space and conservation element and the circulation element, and direct staff to file a notice of exemption with San Mateo County. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Eli Crispy of PlaceWorks, who did the bulk of this work for us.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, Chair Polito, members of the commission. Eli Crispy with PlaceWorks. I'm going to walk you through the presentation this evening. We'll keep things fairly brief, but we will cover the background of the community safety element update and why we are making these changes to the general plan. We will discuss the environmental review and some coordination that we've had with external and state agencies. And then lastly, I'll give you a summary of the proposed changes to the element. Next slide, please. So the community safety element, or simply the safety element, is a required part of Atherton's general plan. Every city and county in California has to have a safety element. And the purpose of this section is to identify hazards of concern in the community, primarily natural hazards, and issues associated with natural hazards and with emergency management, and then to lay out policies to help protect the community against these hazards. So in Atherton's case, we have been making updates to the community safety element primarily to address some new state requirements. There's been a lot of new legislation that Sacramento has passed in the past 10 years, and we want to make sure that Atherton's general plan is up to date and is compliant with what the state is requiring. We've also updated some other information to be on top of new science and new availability of information, and also to respond simply to any new issues that have emerged or new concerns from the community. One other change I want to note is the update to the community safety element incorporates the San Mateo County multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan, which Atherton is a participant of, and incorporating that multi-jurisdictional plan in the community safety element makes Atherton potentially more eligible for increased grant funding and increased disaster relief funding from the state if that should ever become necessary. Next slide, please. Here are some of the changes that the state has made to the safety element requirements. The California Government Code lays out what has to be in a safety element, and in the past 10 years, there have been a lot of new requirements that have come into effect. Some of the more prominent ones are listed here, including requirements to look at how climate change is expected to affect natural hazards in Atherton and to have policies to respond to those changes, to update the safety element about once every 8 years, and to address evacuation constraints or evacuation challenges that might be present in the community. One law that was signed in 2024 and has not yet come into effect requires that the safety element address extreme heat issues in the town and that there be policies to address extreme heat. Even though that law is not yet coming into effect, we have tried to preemptively address it. So you will see extreme heat discussed and mentioned in the community safety element. Next slide, please. These are some of the other updates that we've been making, some of the other factors driving this update. I mentioned the changes to state law and incorporating the new requirements around climate change and other topics. In addition to that, we have made sure that the discussion of hazards in the community safety element is up to date, that we are using the latest information and the latest mapping. And then we have gone in and revised or added new goals, policies, and implementation actions. There is a lot from the current adopted community safety element that we have maintained. It was only updated a few years ago. Most of it remains effective and relevant. So if it's still working, we haven't touched it, but we have gone in and made a few changes to the policies to be responsive to these issues. The town conducted a series of community engagement activities that have helped inform the community safety element update. This includes introductions to this commission a couple years ago and to the city council. There were public workshops that were held in 2024 and 2025. We worked with Get Ready Atherton, coordinated with them. I made sure to get input from a number of other town departments, including Menlo Fire. And then the draft community safety element was released a few months ago for a 30-day public comment period. Next slide, please. For the purposes of the California Environmental Quality Act and the required environmental review, the community safety element falls under the common sense exemption. This is a program level planning document. There is no specific development action. There's no specific land disturbance. No development is entitled or approved as a part of the community safety element. So that common sense exemption we feel is warranted. Any future implementation actions associated with the community safety element that might result in ground disturbance or other development type activities would be subject to a separate CEQA review at that time. We have submitted the draft community safety element to 2 state agencies. This is a requirement of state law. We have submitted it to the Governor's Office of Emergency Services and the California Geological Survey. Neither of them had any additional comments or recommendations or proposed edits. Not a state agency, but a regional agency that we have also been coordinating with is the county's flood control and sea level rise district, also known as One Shoreline. They have been a critical partner on updating the community safety element from the beginning, and their comments and their input are reflected in the document throughout. So with that, I will spend a little time talking through some of the changes in a bit more detail. We have incorporated the climate vulnerability assessment. This is a separate technical analysis that is included, I believe, as Appendix B to the community safety element. And as I mentioned earlier, this analyzes the risk posed by climate change to people, to buildings, to other structures, and to other components of the town. We have updated a number of the wildfire policies in the community safety element. Wildfire is not a hugely significant risk in Atherton, but there are some areas that have been designated as moderate, as zones of moderate wildfire hazard, reflecting some changes in mapping that the town approved last year. So there have been some updates to the wildfire policies in response to that. We have identified areas of the town where there are potential evacuation constraints, lacking multiple means of ingress and egress. That is a state requirement. And then we have also updated some of the maps, as I mentioned, and added a few new policies to address extreme heat, severe weather, and drought. In addition to the changes to the community safety element, we also made some minor changes to 2 other elements of the general plan. to the open space and conservation element, and to the circulation element. And this is primarily because there were topics in these two elements that relate to natural hazards and emergency management. So we wanted to make sure that the entirety of the general plan was consistent with the updates to the community safety element. So in the open space and conservation element, there is some new language about the recently constructed town center park, implementation of the town's flood control projects, and a new goal and policy that promote climate resilience and the benefits of climate resilience that are associated with open space. And that is addressing another new state requirement that came into effect recently. On the circulation element, we have updated the language to reflect the closure of the Atherton train station and to discuss improvements to the Watkins Avenue rail crossing. And these are very minor, and they're just meant to ensure consistency with the updates that were made to the community safety element. So with that, again, the recommendation of staff is that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council adoption of a resolution to amend the general plan to implement updates to these three elements: the community safety, open space and conservation, and circulation element, and direct staff to file the notice of exemption. That does conclude our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll open it up for questions, comments, commissioners. Tom, you have anything to add to the board?
No.
I was amazed when you look at the red line version.
Yeah.
This part of the general plan has gotten a lot thicker. So there was a substantial number of changes. Way beyond my ability to digest, I can assure you.
Seemed okay.
Any other comments?
Nothing from me.
No.
And I think our obligation to tell the city council we think this is a good idea, huh? I've got the wall.
Going to make the motion.
Does this need to be read?
If you've got the right,
I do. I think I do.
We could just.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution to amend the Atherton General Plan and updates to the community safety element, open space and conservation element, circulation element, and direct staff to file the notice of.
I'll second.
further comment, question, any public comment? All right, I'll call for, should do a roll call vote again.
Vice Chair Tonelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Siebolt,
Yes.
Chair Polito,
Yes.
Commissioner Lugers,
Yes.
and Commissioner Levinson.
Yes.
That's 5-0. Passing.
That brings us to staff reports.
Yes, thank you, Town Planner. I just have one update for you. Last week, I attended the City Council meeting to discuss the potential program of developing housing at Holbrook Palmer Park with the Gilmore House. I presented the council with kind of a recap of what was in the annual progress report relative to where we stand with our RENA numbers, where things have been with Menlo College and potentially maybe Menlo School in terms of developing teacher housing, SB 79 and the implications that are unknown there, as well as the fact that I have a number of preliminary applications filed on the RM10 sites that indicate an interest in development, but not yet an actual tangible project. They basically filed their applications to avoid the inclusionary housing ordinance and vest the rules that are in place at a certain date. And they now have 6 months to submit a real application. So with that said, the council took those all into consideration and decided that they would reconsider developing or initiating potential development on the Gilmore House during their 2027 annual progress review, which would occur in March 2028.
Brittany, which RM10 properties have the interest?
Let me pull those up 1 second. Sorry for the suspense. My connection is just really slow tonight. Do you want to see if you can beat me and bring up the project tracking list?
Is there 5 of them?
There are, well, the housing element needs at least three proposals. And we already have a project that was approved per the RM10 requirements on the Circus Club site.
I want,
So we have one, we need 2 more.
Sorry, there's something on the Circus Club?
The employee house or employee housing unit.
Okay.
That's a single unit.
That's a single unit, yeah. But because it was employee housing, it was facilitated under the RM10 program.
there's only 1 unit.
There's only 1 unit
Oh, I
though.
didn't know that.
So there are 2 units there. For what it's worth. Maybe they both don't
The
qualify.
last time we discussed that at a planning commission meeting or a city council meeting, I believe we received a letter indicating that there's only one. And the one that we were aware of is just been eliminated and now replaced and rehabbed with a future unit.
We can take it offline.
Yeah.
I think you got a response on a different subject. Trust me, there are 2 units.
Okay. I'm still seeing the spinning wheel of.
Well, it's
death, I
it's
like to call
99,
it.
it's 99 Ringwood, 2
It's
properties,
999 Ringwood.
2 properties on
It would be
Glenwood,
under the
on Ravenswood.
IRB tab, and they would be identified as SB 330 projects.
So the ones on Ravenswood are, that clock strikes 8. We need
2
to
of them.
adjourn.
2 of them are.
Okay, so we have one for 23 Oakwood. We have a proposal at 197 Ravenswood, 999 Ringwood, 175 Ravenswood. Okay. There is one other one that came in as an SB 1123, and that's the 10 lot subdivision. And that is at, can you scroll up? 296 Bay Road.
Okay. That it? That's it for us too. Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
seconded, and all in favor, aye.
Right.